Yo, 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 home slices, lit fam, pure savage. I'm just kidding. I don't really talk like that, I promise. I don't even know how that got to be popular, actually. Man, sometimes you look back at, like, cool things that people said and you're like, well, I guess I can see how that was cool at the time, but I really don't understand a lot of the slang that the youth of today speak. But anyway, welcome to another episode of Spilling the Beans. Honestly, I didn't think that I would record another episode. You know, I've had a lot of doubts about doing this podcast. It's taken a lot of courage from me to continue doing it. I'll tell you kind of about that. There's a lot of things I want to talk about. Today, when this is recorded, it's July 11th, 2018. Probably what many of you are thinking, oh, that was 7-Eleven's free Slurpee day. And I haven't gotten my free Slurpee yet, but I'm definitely going to with a bunch of my friends that came back from their missions. I will do that later. And also, it is 4:20 p.m. right now, and at 4:30, I promised one of my friends that I would play a match of Hearthstone with him at 4:30, so I think I can just keep recording and I can play the game on my phone. So I'm probably going to do that. Hopefully it doesn't mess anything up, but I guess we'll see how that goes. Something I found in my room, I stumbled upon it. I was looking for a paper to write things down that I wanted to talk about so I could have those things with me. Also, there's a fan running in the background, so hopefully that's not too distracting. I'm sure that'll be really easy to edit out if it does end up being in the recording, but just so you know, that's happening, because it's really hot. It's the dead of summer. Today, actually, it's pretty overcast, and it's really nice, but yeah, man, that reminds me of something else I need to talk about, but I'll get there later. But today, it's quite overcast. It's been in the hundreds lately, but right now, it's got to be in the 80s to cannot speak, low 80s to mid 80s right now because of the clouds. I'm also really hungry, so if my stomach growls, I apologize. But yes, I'm very hungry, so I'm gonna eat after this for sure. So anyway, back to what I was saying. There goes my stomach. I don't know if you could hear that. I found this list of reasons why I would respect a man or woman, but I think when I wrote man, I meant like fellow man, like mankind. So we'll see. Yeah, so I found it because I was looking for a paper to write stuff on, and on this notepad that I found, the list was on the top, and I'll read it to you because I think it's actually pretty interesting what I was thinking. So it starts off, I respect a man who listens to Enya. I thought that was interesting because I remember having a conversation with one of my uncles who says that men listen to Enya, and I believe that. I agree, because Enya, it's not just like a lady music, it's not music for wimps. Like, if you've ever listened to Enya, that Enya always sings about really positive and uplifting things, and her voice is just really, it's quite outstanding. It is beautiful. Her music is really soothing and calming. There are times where Enya, it's what you need to listen to, and so she's definitely earned her fame. She deserves her fame. I know I've seen on shows and things they've made fun of Enya before, but I don't see a reason to. If someone doesn't like Enya, I won't hold it against them, because her music is kind of different, but it's really good though. Anyone that's listening to this, if you haven't ever listened to Enya's music, you should definitely look it up. One of my favorite Enya songs is Drifting. That is such a calming piano song. So nice. And it's got some like violins and stuff. You just got to listen to it. The Celts is also a very good song. It has kind of like you could tell it was made in the 80s. It's really cool though. It's not like 80s rock or anything. You just got to listen to it. I could go on, but anyway, I like Enya, and I respect somebody that likes Enya. Recognizes the greatness that is He-Man. I'm reading this word for word. This is what it says on the notepad. That's really funny. I do. If somebody knows what He-Man is, my respect for them just like skyrocket. I'm just like, wow, you know what He-Man is? You know who Skeletor is? And I don't know if I've talked about how much I love He-Man and the Masters of the Universe on this show. I know I talk about that a lot with like my friends and people I'm getting to know, but that's my favorite show of all time. I'll briefly go over why I love it so much. That show was really, really funny, and not at the expense of using crude humor or distasteful humor. Like, it's all clean, really funny. The cartoons, this is an 80s show, so the cartoons aren't as maybe high quality as some would expect, and maybe like Phineas and Ferb or something like that, which is also a good show. But I think that makes it even better because it's more authentic, you know. The He-Man is just really awesome. You know, he always has the perfect thing to say in every situation. Skeletor's got to be the best villain of all time. I mean, sorry, Thanos, but Skeleton, is that what you said? Skeletor is the best because he's so funny. You just gotta watch. He's the king of roasting people. I mean, a lot of people tell me that I can be pretty good at roasting people. But Skeletor, he is the king. He is so funny. My favorite thing about He-Man and the Masters of the Universe is that at the end of each episode, one of the characters from that episode stops and tells you why today's episode was important. It wants to ensure that the moral message got across. And I think that's really cool. It's like they took time to say why it was important. And that's so cool. You don't see that in really TV shows, let alone the ones that they show today. Goodness sakes. I've seen some of the shows they have on like Cartoon Network. Totally, it's just complete and utter brainlessness. Just, I don't know how kids' minds still function after watching an episode of even like SpongeBob. I've seen some of the newer episodes of that show. Seasons 1 through 3 of SpongeBob are good. After that, it's trash. Anyway, I love He-Man. I respect a man that likes the Hobbit movies more, yet recognizes that Lord of the Rings is higher quality. And that's kind of how I am too. I could watch the Hobbit movies more often because I feel like they're not as emotionally draining as Lord of the Rings, but Lord of the Rings are much higher quality. It would be ignorant not to address that. I respect a man that likes Coldplay's old stuff, their old music. A lot of people love Coldplay's current music, which I still really love. Coldplay is one of my favorite groups. Like their Head Full of Dreams album, that's a good one. You know, a lot of people like their song Hymn of the Weekend, I believe it's called. It's got Beyonce. You know, who doesn't love Beyonce and Coldplay? And I know Coldplay's done music with Rihanna, and you know, they do like fun music that's more current, but they have a lot of good songs like Yellow or The Scientist, or even more obscure ones like God Put a Smile on Your Face. Like that's some good music. Coldplay's old stuff, I feel like it's more U2-esque, if you like U2. Something I've noticed is that if you like the band U2, usually you simultaneously enjoy Coldplay. I don't know why that is. They usually go hand in hand. I believe Coldplay has stated that U2 is one of their inspirations for their style of music. Anyway, man, sometimes, it's almost 4:30, so I'm gonna keep reading off this list, but as it's recording, I'm gonna open up the Hearthstone app. Hearthstone's a fun game. It's by Blizzard Entertainment, man. They make some fun games. Okay, let's text Derek. Oh man, I'm looking at a conversation I had with him earlier. Derek, he's a great guy. He sent me this weird video. I'm not even going to describe it because I don't even know what it was, but I saw it and I just texted what, like W-U-T, what? Because it was so random. Like, sometimes there's random funny videos, but this one was just random. I had no idea how to feel about it. Anyway, let's text him. Ready to Hearthstone it up. And let's see. Yep, text sent. Let's go back to Anchor. Still recording, good. Looks like this probably won't mess it up then. So I guess the Hearthstone app will just be there. Is it downloading anything? Okay, anyway, I don't want you guys to be bored by my Hearthstone. Oh, look at that. It's working. Awesome. So anyway, back to the list. So Brigham Young University, very good school. Highly recommend it to anyone in Utah. Brigham Young University and the University of Utah are rival universities in sports. What I wrote on the list is, I respect a man who is a BYU fan but is also happy when the University of Utah does well. And this is what I mean by that. When BYU and U of U face each other, go ahead and cheer for whichever team you want. Hello, hello, hello. Funny story. After the phone call that I had just received from my friends, when I hung up the phone, the recording on my phone stopped for some reason. And I know there's a way to talk with people on the phone and record it using the Anchor app, but it was just a phone call in the middle of my recording. I think that messed it up somehow. So basically, I lost about 40 minutes of recording. So I need to re-record. I also recorded again, but without thinking. This was such an absent-minded thing to do. As I was uploading the audio that I had recorded a second time, I closed the app as it was uploading, and it just got lost in cyberspace. And so it's out there somewhere floating in cyberspace, and I have no idea where it is. So this is my third attempt to finish this episode. And I was a little frustrated because I was like, well, I just lost the recording. That's so frustrating. And then I lost the second one. But then I was thinking, well, you know what? Better to make these mistakes now than later on. Now I know that if someone's called me, that I'll just what I had to do is turn my phone on Do Not Disturb while I'm recording. That's probably a good idea. But anyway, yeah, so we were going through the list, and I ended on BYU and Utah playing sports together. The next thing I put on the list was, I respect a man who thinks rats are cute. And adult chickens, I said in parentheses. I don't think that has anything to do with me respecting somebody. What probably happened was, I was talking with somebody and I was saying how I think rats are really cute, and they were talking to me like, no, I don't think they're that cute, And so I was probably upset by that, and so I just put that on my list, I'll show you, But I do think rats are very cute. I've had 3 pairs of rats. They were all awesome. First 2 rats were Pinky and Brownie. Second batch of rats were Clooney and Remy. And the third batch of rats were Steve and Pete. Oh man, Steve and Pete were definitely my favorite rats. Yeah, they were awesome. And adult chickens, I've had chickens in the past. I had 4 chickens the first time. Me and my family did. It was Daisy, Tulip, Matilda, and Pansy. Pansy, I'm looking at a picture of Pansy right now. I have a picture of Pansy hung up in my room. It's so weird. I have a picture of a chicken just hanging up in my room, but I loved that chicken. Pansy was really, really mean. She would peck you and you'd bleed and stuff. She would peck people on purpose. She'd chase them just because she was on the bottom of the pecking order, and she got picked on a lot by the other chickens, so she probably just needed some way to vent, and so she pecked on the humans. But she was still my favorite, though. I don't know why. I had this connection with Pansy. Pansy probably hated my guts, but Pansy is always going to be my favorite chicken. I respect a man who signals when they turn into their driveway. Now, I do respect this because I think I highly appreciate it when people signal. It's really frustrating when you're driving on the freeway and and somebody's merging into a lane, but they didn't signal. So all of a sudden, they're just going into the other lane. And, that can be really dangerous. You're going at those high speeds, and, if someone doesn't, see your blinker going on, they might not think you're merging. It could be bad. So to see somebody that's, I'm not saying everybody has to signal into their driveway, just usually it's not many people might live on your neighborhood street, or, it's not a busy road or whatever. You probably wouldn't need to signal because chances are there won't be someone behind you. But if you signal when you're going into your driveway, that probably means you signal in every other aspect of driving. And I personally take pride in the amount of signaling that I do when I go on drives. So Yes, I think that's really cool. I respect a man who has a favorite kind of cloud. Now that's interesting that I wrote that. I do have a favorite kind of cloud. I mean, I don't know the names. I mean, I know there's like cumulus, cumulonimbus, nimbo, stratus, like stratus, cumulonimbus. I don't know, like all of them, but I know that my favorite kind of cloud they're those really puffy ones that like they look like very detailed clouds. Like if you've ever seen Castle in the Sky, it's the clouds that are covering the castle in the sky. It's like those are my favorite kind of clouds. I just think they're really beautiful. My second favorite clouds are definitely rain clouds, just because I love the rain a lot. You know, a lot of people are like, but it's so sad. I mean, it's all dark and gray, you know, and everything's all wet. And I say, well, yeah, but I mean, because of the rain, you know, more things can grow, you know, like it's good for gardens and lawns and whatnot. And, you know, if there's a drought, you know, it'd be good for that. And that's how it is in life too. I mean, rain is a perfect analogy for life. Like sometimes we experience emotional rainstorms in our life, but depending on how we capitalize on that rain, we can use it for our own personal growth and benefit. And so, anyway, those are my favorite kind of clouds. That got a little deeper than I would have anticipated, but yeah, there we go. I respect a man who likes the smell of old books, even if they don't like reading. Yeah, I think that books smell good. Like, if you've ever smelled an old book, you'll know what I'm talking about. All those people that read out there. I don't necessarily like reading, not because I just think it's boring. I think reading is very cool. It's just I just kind of stink at reading. And I always have, just because it's really hard for me to focus on it for some reason, even if it's something I'm really interested in. Like I have a lot of the Brian Jakes novels in my room, but I haven't read them just because I cannot focus. I cannot get myself to read them. Even though I don't necessarily enjoy reading, I can't not acknowledge that I think old books smell really good, you know? And this basically leads to a concept of like, even if you don't necessarily like something, even if you don't like it, sometimes there's things that are objectively good about it, you know? Like, I'm not a huge fan of the movie Inception, you know, and I know a lot of people will get angry at me because they think it's a really good movie, and I acknowledge that it's a really cool movie. You know, the idea and the concept of that movie is just pretty mind-blowing. It's very cool. I'm just not a huge fan of maybe a couple of the actors, or I didn't think it was as funny as it could have been or whatever, but I still acknowledge that's a really cool movie, you know? Just because I don't like something doesn't mean it's objectively bad, or that everyone should think it's bad type thing. I also respect a man, and if I didn't clarify this already, I can't remember if I did in the other recording or not. When I say I respect a man, I'm referring to like manhood. No, not manhood. No, I'm referring to mankind, as in like humans, you know? So, yeah, I'm referring to manhood. So, like, I mean women too, men and women. Yeah, someone that is my age, excuse me, Phlegm City, and enjoys old Disney movies. The old Disney movies are really good, in my opinion, because they provided quality entertainment while not at the expense of having to put in like crude humor or language or anything otherwise inappropriate. Just you can feel safe watching them with about anybody, you know, like the movie The Love Bug or The Apple Dumpling Gang. The Computer Who Wore Tennis Shoes is one of the funniest movies of all time. And there's just a ton of those old, like even Mary Poppins, you know, like those are such good movies. And, you know, there's nothing bad in them. And they're so funny and entertaining. Like, those are the funniest movies, in my opinion. Like, they got some funny movies nowadays, you know, like Guardians of the Galaxy, I think the first and second one, they're pretty hilarious. But, I mean, there's also a lot of, like, crude humor, and it's like, even though I think it's funny, I can't feel good about condoning that type of thing. Whereas if more people were as funny as, like, Dick Van Dyke, or Tim Conway, or Don Knotts, I'd be so happy, and the world would be a better place. Oh man, Jimmy Stewart, easily my favorite actor of all time. James Stewart, he is so cool. If anyone listening to this podcast hasn't seen It's a Wonderful Life and Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, you are missing out. Those are two of the best films ever made, in my opinion. And everyone should watch them, especially It's a Wonderful Life. That's a fantastic film. Family watches it for Christmas every year. Well, Christmas Eve, but yeah. Okay, I respect a man who likes Lagoon more than Disneyland, and not purely because of financial reasons. Now, the reason I say this is because, if I don't know if they have lagoons outside of Utah, but there's an amusement park in Utah called Lagoon. It's like, a bunch of roller coasters. It's like, I've heard it's like a smaller version of Six Flags. And, it's a lot of fun, but it's more of a local attraction, I feel like. I don't think as many people outside of Utah go all the way just to go to Lagoon, So obviously Lagoon is a lot less expensive than Disneyland. Disneyland's really expensive. It's a cool place, I've been a couple times for choir tour, but I've never gone with my family or anything. And it's a lot of fun, but I feel like it is overrated, to be honest. I love Disney. No hard feelings against Disney, but I do think it's a little overrated. It's more tailored for children, Even a lot of the scarier rides, it's like, this is really fun, but like I could just go to Lagoon and experience basically the same thing. I got a corn dog at Disneyland one time, and it was so expensive. For like one corn dog, I think it was like $8 or $10, something like that. And I could go to Arctic Circle, just a mile and a half away from my house and get, a couple, like 8 of those for cheaper than one there, And so it's all around an expensive experience. It's cool though. I think everyone should go to Disneyland at least once, obviously if you're financially capable of doing that. But if you like Lagoon more than Disneyland, not just because it's cheaper, that means like you're your own person. And even though Disneyland's like, more critically acclaimed and famous and popular, you're not biased by that. A lot of these things I respect people for lead to these bigger concepts, I feel like. I didn't even realize that. Okay, yeah, this one for sure. I respect a man that doesn't claim that their mission is the best mission. Now, and I mean this, in the LDS Church, I have talked about this before, we have the opportunity to go and serve in another part of the world from where we live, to kind of like help others, see if people need any help, serve others, and spread the knowledge of our church, our beliefs. And so, like I went to the Japan Tokyo South mission. I served in the southern area of Tokyo, Japan. And I've had friends that have served in Ukraine, Kentucky, Brazil, Sweden, Arkansas, like there's a ton. I could keep going. Chile, Alabama, Washington, New Mexico. And so a lot of people will say, like, jokingly, of course, like, oh man, my mission is the best mission, I was the luckiest person to be sent to the best mission, and it's like that gets people to chuckle, it's like he obviously really likes his mission, or she, or whatever. See, when we get sent to these places, a lot of people think we get called to a certain mission, but really we get called to the Lord's work, We're not a missionary because we're in a mission. We're a missionary because we're working, We should really be called workinaries. We're out there, just serving people 24/7. If we're not working, we're probably sleeping and eating and stuff, We're out there because of God, not because of a certain place, And I think it's safe to say most people understand this, They don't actually believe that, they went to the best place, but it's like, no matter where you are, you're doing what the Lord has asked you to do. And wherever there's a mission, there's work to be done. I've had several friends that have been called to serve in areas very close to Utah, like Colorado, Idaho, New Mexico. Like we're bordering all of these states. I mean, New Mexico, we're touching the corner of it even. And so even though it's maybe not as maybe prestigious as going to a foreign country, there's still people that we believe need to be helped. It's not about the mission, it's about the Lord's work, and you just happen to be in a certain area. That is called a mission. Ooh, somebody that knows that Ringo Starr from the Beatles narrated Thomas the Tank Engine. That's right, folks, if you didn't know already, one of the Beatles used to narrate Thomas the Tank Engine a long time ago. One of the Beatles, yeah, that's how awesome Thomas the Tank Engine was. They got one of the most famous musicians of all time to narrate the show. And I don't particularly love the Beatles' music, but I love Ringo Starr solely because he narrated Thomas the Tank Engine, like the old show, because that was my childhood. Even like Alec Baldwin, I think he's kind of a weird actor, but I love his narration for Thomas the Tank Engine. I thought it was so good, And so there's a lot of things these celebrities have done where you're like, whoa, didn't know that. And so it's really cool. I don't know why I respect a person for knowing that. Maybe it's like I appreciate it. It's like, oh, another person that knows, Ooh, I respect somebody that enjoys pulling weeds. And when I say pulling weeds, I mean like literally pulling weeds, and also like any kind of work in general, like physical labor. Just because I do some sort of physical labor at my job, just because I'm a custodian. And, I'm always walking around, cleaning stuff, getting on my knees to scrub something, or I got to carry these heavy things. Like, it's not as strenuous as many other jobs around the world. And I get really tired easily, and sometimes I'm just not feeling motivated to keep working. But, like, those people that enjoy working hard, I think that is so cool. I really respect them for that. I look up to them for that, just because it's not always easy to do that. Like farmers, I have such a big respect for them. They wake up really early, and they're working from dawn till dusk, just like, and they're super fit because of it. I don't think I'd have the strength or the motivation to be a farmer. And so I'm really glad that there's people out there that are willing to do that. And a lot of jobs nowadays, a lot of the jobs that involve physical labor aren't as high paying as other jobs, like maybe becoming a doctor or a dentist. And I mean, I don't mean to belittle those other careers. I mean, obviously they take a lot of work and preparation and schooling for that. But the physical laborers, I really look up to and respect. If you know how awesome Mr. Rogers is, that is awesome. Because Mr. Rogers really is one of the coolest people of all time. There's a documentary about him that just came out that I really want to see. I love all of the things that he teaches on his show. I just saw this clip while I was on Facebook of like an example of how during a time of severe racism, Mr. Rogers combated that by bringing in people on the show that were black, the people that were being persecuted at that time, and showed these really powerful lessons. Like this one time, he invited like an officer to his house, and Mr. Rogers had just set up a pool in his backyard, like a little pool to like dip his feet in because it was cold water because it was hot outside. And, the officer came over and he was like, "Here, do you want to use my pool and cool off a little bit?" And the officer was like, "Yeah, sure." And, he's letting them use like this sprayer that sprayed their feet with this really cold water that probably felt really good. And when it was time for them to finish up, he had this towel, and the officer was like, "Oh, I don't have anything to dry off my feet with." And he's like, "Here, you can use my towel too." And so if you look at that from a symbolic point of view, you would know that Mr. Rogers is trying to communicate that, we should treat everybody with the same amount of respect, and that amount should be a high amount of respect. Everyone should be treated kindly and compassionately. And Mr. Rogers did that throughout his career. He provided entertainment that was less entertainment forward and more moral values forward, if you know what I mean. Like, if he hasn't, man, he is just incredible. He is going to heaven for 100%. Somebody that stands up for somebody else that is picked on. Cannot tolerate people getting treated disrespectfully from others, you know. Last school year, I would see people getting picked on by other kids, and I have no patience for that. I'd just storm in and I would get in the faces of those boys and be like, what in the world do you think you're doing? That is enough, you know, and I sent them to the office just because that is not okay to treat people so poorly. I don't know how you could. There's a lot of people that I disagree with, like politically or maybe religiously, you know, but I don't have any hard feelings because of that. You know, I'm tolerant of that. But if no matter what somebody believes, if they're treating somebody with disrespect, I'm going to step in and be like, hey, you need to cut that out right now. That is not okay. And I will get in their face about it. I'll say, look, you need to stop. This person is incredible. And you're suggesting that they are not. So you need to stop. I mean, I'm not saying you should defend everybody's actions because some people do make bad decisions, but you shouldn't bully somebody. Bullying is never okay. It's never okay in any situation, any circumstance. It's never the right thing to do. Somebody that has fall as their favorite season. That's an interesting one I put on there. I think fall is a great season because it's, you know, all the leaves are changing colors to these beautiful reds, oranges, and yellows. And, you know, there's the smell of fall, you know, the smell of Thanksgiving, you know, like the turkey cooking, the dressing, or I mean, I guess the stuffing. My grandpa always calls it the dressing, and that's what I always call it. I think that's what they call it in the South. You know, there's the smell of apple pie, you know, the smell of cinnamon, you know, and you got football games. The weather's really nice as long as you've got a jacket, you know. You get to rake leaves. It's like, oh, it's just such a wonderful season. The other seasons are good too. Somebody that doesn't necessarily love 21 Pilots, but appreciates their originality. So this is how I am. And this is kind of what I was saying earlier. I don't really like the music that 21 Pilots performs. It's not my scene, as Def Leppard would say. I feel like they're too artsy, you know, like their lyrics are really weird. Their style is really weird. And I know, like, they're Christian and that's cool, you know, and, you know, their lyrics are usually symbolic, but it's like, they're too weird, you know, for me. Like, one of the lyrics is like, but my favorite kind of music is your face or something. And I'm just like, what in the world? What's that even mean? And I think I don't really enjoy the singer's voice too much. However, their music is different from the mainstream artists today. And I think that's cool, you know? Just like they're their own group, you know? They don't rely on fame or popularity to determine what, you know, they sing about, what their genre is like. And that's what I always enjoyed about groups like Rush, you know? They sing about, you know, things that typically aren't sung about, you know? A lot of their songs they sing about science fiction, or they'll sing about something kind of like philosophical, or kind of like it makes you think kind of thing. And their lyrics are they're just out of this world original without being terribly weird. And I really appreciate their contribution to the music industry. Somebody that knows who Samurai Jack is. Samurai Jack has got to be one of the best TV shows of all time. It was on Cartoon Network. Probably the only thing worth watching on Cartoon Network. Like those shows like Courage the Cowardly Dog. That is a weird show. And that's got to be detrimental to kids' brain development. But Samurai Jack was awesome because he's this samurai that has to fight this demon that attacked his hometown, and he gets sent forward in the future. He's trying to go back in time to undo all the evil that this demon has done, and he's really awesome. He has a very high moral compass, and you see him do all these cool things. The action is really cool. It's really similar to a movie called Seven Samurai, if I'm not mistaken. Haven't seen that movie, but I've heard it's similar. And, you know, Jack is so awesome because he'll go into this, you know, bar, this pub full of all these aliens drinking their alien booze or whatever, and Jack will just go up to the counter where the bartender is, and the bartender will be like, "All right, son, what do you want?" And he says, just like really coolly and bossly, "Hot water." And he says hot water, and the bartender kind of looks at him funny, and you see everybody in the bar just like and just like stare at him, and the music stops, and it's so funny. And then he just goes to his table and drinks his hot water like a boss. He just looks so awesome drinking his hot water, and it's definitely a show worth seeing. They finally finished the show after like 14 years. They made the last season. Very, very awesome. Let's see, something about Marvel and DC, kind of already what I talked about. Oh, somebody that doesn't immediately joke about how much they hate speaking in church at the very start of their talk. Yeah, so in the LDS church, we as members are occasionally asked to give kind of like a speech type thing, like a talk about a certain topic in our church. You know, the bishopric will ask us, and we'll go up there and speak. And a lot of people don't love speaking. It can be kind of nerve-wracking. You're in front of a big audience, and it can be kind of scary. And so a lot of people will, I feel like it's like this automatic defense mechanism that the first thing they'll say to kind of like hedge in a way is like say, "Oh man, I hate speaking. I was like, what sin did I commit that made me receive this punishment for speaking rather?" And it's just like, no one wants to hear you complain. I'm sure this bothers me more than most people. Most people probably don't think this is a big deal, but I just think to myself, well, don't complain. Just speak about something that we can be uplifted by. Don't tell us how much you didn't want to speak, or how evil one of the bishopric members is because you got that phone call and you knew exactly what they were going to say. Anyway, I've talked to my dad about this before. We both agree it's much more pleasant when people don't just start out their talks like that. Ooh, Mike and Ike's is a good candy. Ooh, somebody that puts ice in their milk. Now, a lot of people think this is really weird to put ice in your milk. And here's my rationale for that. Milk, for some reason, just tastes a little warmer than other beverages, even if they're chilled at the same temperature. I don't know if other people experience this too, but it just seems warmer. And so if you put ice in your milk, the ice gets colder, it gets cooler, and it's more pleasant to drink, in my opinion. Now, if you let the ice just sit there in the milk, of course the ice will melt, and the water that'll have come off it'll go to the top of the cup because it'll separate. And that's kind of gross, or the milk will be diluted or something and it won't taste as good, But I mean, that's pretty much what happens with every drink, like it'll get more diluted if you just let it sit there. I don't think people get glasses of milk and drink it gradually, like when people are having a conversation, they have those water bottles, like they're not always like chugging it, and of course you wouldn't have milk for that scenario, but I think it's perfectly normal to put ice in your milk. It's considered by many to be a weird practice. I've kind of just come to accept that. Me and my dad both do it. We're not ashamed. Although, no, I mean, like, I'm not ashamed. Just a side note, I think I have like a dairy sensitivity because I've been having these stomach problems from that, so I'm trying to figure that out. And dairy is like so delicious, so it's kind of a struggle. But we will see how that goes. Somebody that prefers brown rice over white rice. That's funny. Somebody that liked Wonder Woman before it was cool. Yeah, before the movie came out. That makes sense why I'd be sore about that. Somebody that wants President Trump to be successful even though you disagree with him. Yeah, I mean, you shouldn't want your president to be unsuccessful, in my opinion. I mean, it's perfectly okay to disagree with them. In fact, if you do disagree with them, you should, Just like we're our own people, we have our own beliefs and thoughts. We should be able to think for ourselves. But even if you disagree with the president, you should wish the best for them. Hopefully they make good decisions for our country. You should still do your best to help the nation, regardless of what circumstances. Like a lot of people, they dreaded, no, President Trump got elected, no. And, I think it's safe to say a lot of people didn't love that outcome. However, that shouldn't prevent us from doing things that need to be done. We can still do our part, even if something didn't turn out the way we want. And so I hate it when people complain about the president, not because I don't like that they're bashing on the president, but because they're just complaining, you know? And they're not offering any solutions or anything, you know? It's sorry if you hear that noise. It's like this Velcro that I use to like wrap up the microphone cord with. I always have to fidget with something I found. Today is Sunday, and I visited one of my friends' homecoming talks because he just got back from his mission, and there were like these programs, you know, so that we would know kind of what was going on, what was the agenda for the meeting. And whenever I get a program and somebody else wants to look at it, you better look at it first, because chances are I'm going to crumple it without even thinking. Anyway, that's kind of like a side note. Let's see. Has somebody that has brown be their favorite color? Again, that's like another sign that like you don't conform, because let's be honest, when was the last time you met somebody with their favorite color being brown? Now, if you've ever met me, you'll know my favorite color is brown. I just love the color brown a lot. I don't know. But I don't think I've ever met anyone and that's their favorite color. Maybe that's how I'll know who my future wife is. Like, ooh, you like brown? Wow, this will work out. No, I don't know. But somebody that performs full and complete stops, yeah, I respect that. Somebody that doesn't see the cops as bad guys, yeah. So some of my favorite people in the world are the police, you know? And I'm not saying every police officer is perfect or hasn't broken the law themselves, you know, but the police are incredible. Without the police, crime would abound in this nation. And that goes with, and I mean, as long as it's not a corrupt police force. And I've seen many of the police officers and firefighters and, you know, first responders in American Fork, my hometown, and they're awesome. They're really nice. You know, they're there to help. You know, I would always get really annoyed in high school when people would complain that they got pulled over and they're just saying like, well, I mean, why was the cop even there? I mean, I was just going a little faster, and he was just sitting there just to set a speed trap just so we could pull someone over. And, you know, I don't know how tickets work and speed limits and all. I don't know like too in depth how that all plays, like where the money goes to and stuff. But, it's like, if you were speeding, then yeah, you should totally be arrested. Whether you agree with the speed limit or not is kind of irrelevant, because there's nothing inherently morally wrong with obeying the speed limit, and you're just breaking the law at that point. Like, you are breaking the law. I mean, it's a rather minor way to break the law. However, there's consequences for that, and if you're getting upset because you think you're prideful enough that you think that you should have been allowed to speed, then you should get a ticket for that. You know, if you're trash talking on these wonderful men and women that keep us safe from bad people, then yeah, you should get a ticket. Maybe more than that. I have a high respect for policemen, and I know sometimes they get a bad rap because of, like, you know, maybe somebody got shot and many people believe that it wasn't justified, or, you know, whatever happens. Generally, I believe the police are incredible, and they deserve more respect and appreciation. Somebody that plays with the Legos, oh man, Legos, those are usually the best toy of all time. That's just one of the facts of life. I mean, you can be so creative with them. You know, you can buy these Lego sets, you know, where they give you instructions to buy a specific thing. But if you're a true master builder, like they refer to master builders in the Lego movie, you don't need instructions to build things. I'll probably build a set that comes with the instructions. I'll build it like the instructions say once, and it's like, oh, that's cool. And then after that, I pretty much just throw away the instructions, just because, I mean, you don't buy Legos to just like build this greater thing that has instructions. That's not nearly as creative as building your own thing, you know? And that's the beauty of Legos. Some people aren't up to the task of being able to build something amazing with Legos. And honestly, I get really exhausted playing with Legos now. For some reason, my brain is like shutting down, you know, like too creative. But it's a fantastic thing. Legos are the best. And then, yes, Legos are much more superior than Mega Bloks. Mega Bloks are cheap. copy of Legos. They're not as good as the real thing. Legos are a lot sturdier and they won't break. The Mega Bloks, I mean, they made like Halo. If you know the video game Halo, it's like, an alien shooter game, you blow up the aliens and whatnot. And like, it's like Star Wars, except the Death Star is in the shape of a ring. I don't entirely know the story, but they made Mega Bloks toys of like this Halo stuff. And the video game's rated M, it's like 17 and up. And they're making these sets for young kids about this M game. And that just blows my mind. Like, why would you want to expose your kid to stuff like this? And that creates like a weird mentality that like, oh, well, if it's a building block toy like this, it's probably okay for my kids to play. And I'd say, well, no, it's not. Mega Bloks, that's just their pathetic attempts to try and be as famous as Star Wars, or not Star Wars, Legos. I said Star Wars because I was thinking Legos, they got Star Wars, they got all the, Disney movies that are coming out. They even made Pixar Legos for Toy Story. That's so cool. And, they've done that. They have like their own TV shows, they have movies, like when is the Mega Bloks movie going to come out? Never. That's never going to happen because it's not going to be good. No one wants to see Mega Bloks, but everyone wants to see Legos. Anyway, looks like I've reached about the 41.5-minute mark on this second recording, so I'll probably have to wrap it up. And luckily, that's the end of the list. Anyway, I just found that. I thought it'd be fun to talk about. So I think on the last episode, I said I'd have a guest for this one. Unfortunately, it was like it's been a busy past 2 weeks with like the 4th of July and like people coming back and things, so I was never really able to get to it. I'm hoping that this week I can do an interview with one of my very good friends, and I'm not going to say his name yet just because I'm not sure if he is able to or if he even is willing to. I need to reach out to him, but he's an amazing guy. He has these awesome perspectives on life, and I'm really looking forward to interviewing him. But anyway, stay tuned for that. I'm going to try to, once this episode is finished, like being edited and stuff, I'm going to try and release my podcast officially. So whether or not the next episode is done by the time this podcast is released, we have yet to see. But once this one is all finished, should be good to go. And I got someone to work for me, my younger sister. I'm paying her $20 for each episode that she edits for me. I showed her how to do it. It's really easy, and I'm going to pay her for it just because she's not old enough to have a job yet. And so it's going to be awesome. Anyway, I'm excited. Thanks for listening, and I will see you guys next time.